Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wall Street Hackers, one of the most popular shows on the Pod TV network, which is seen in the United States and, of course, around the world, where we discuss things from stocks, bonds, real estate, the equity market, the markets in general. We also have quotes of the week, stories of the week, and Peter's picks, along with a panel discussion, all in 30 minutes. With that, we're going to bring in the hacker himself, a graduate of UCLA, where he received his degree in economics, his MBA from New York University, has a law degree from the University of Miami, and spending 17 years on the streets of Wall Street in New York. None other than the hacker himself. Let's bring in Peter Bennett. Peter, welcome to your show.
Hey, Nick. No, I'm not really sweating on Wall Street. I wasn't, but I could have been, but no. And you're right about the 30 minutes. It's a lot of stuff to get in there. That's why we go really fast. But we're covering not only the most important news of the week, but also the markets and also the picks and everything. So welcome to Wall Street Hackers, March 21st, 24. You can catch a new edition almost every Thursday or Saturday at 1, just depending on your distribution channel. So the markets, the Fed left rates unchanged, as everybody who follows finance knows that. But they left the projected dot plot also at 3 rate cuts. And the market has finally woken up to the fact that it won't be 6, which we were saying forever. But 3 is probably way more than they're going to have. And as a matter of fact, interestingly, there was almost a vote to bring it down to 2 rate cuts. There was just 1 vote short of 2 rate cuts. So this is the trend. And personally, I think that they shouldn't be thinking about rate cuts at all. I don't like the talk from the Fed that's so optimistic all the time about the economy, because it's just stimulating inflation, and that's their problem. The Fed is so far behind on inflation, as we've been saying for about a year and a half or so. So the Fed also said that the GDP projections are going up to 2.1% from 1.4% for year 24. So that's the kind of thing you say, wait, if GDP is going up, why are you talking about rate cuts? You know, they give this optimistic talk, but now it's been 5 straight Fed meetings where they didn't increase. If there is one, it might be political, but I think they should be talking about or thinking about a rate increase, and they may be forced to do that because inflation battle is not going well. Meanwhile, the energy prices are rising, and we predicted this last fall. We said, look, falling energy prices are contributing to declining inflation, but it's not going to last, and there's a good chance it's rising. Well, energy prices are rising along with the sector in general. Unemployment, of course, remains at 50-year lows or near it. And the government is spending at record rates. And there's a tsunami of debt coming down the road for, in the next few years, because they're spending more and more. And there's the unfunded liabilities, which we're going to be indirectly discussing in our panel discussion this week, which is what would Nick and I do if we were president. So meanwhile, the financial media keeps reporting new highs. It sounds really exciting. New high for the S&P, new high, new high. But the reality is very different. And, you can feel, okay, I'm putting all my money into the market. I can't lose. But in fact, the S&P, the SPY, which reflects the S&P 500, was at 476 over 2.3 years ago now. That was 12, 15, 21. We're talking about 519 yesterday. So that's maybe a 3.9% annual return. And that sounds great. Oh, I made 3.9. It's not spectacular. And that's including all the tech companies that went up through the roof that lifted that. But the problem there is, wait a minute, 3.9 against inflation. Are you treading water? Are you losing money? The average inflation during the whole Biden administration has been 6%. And I've been trying to get numbers on exactly what inflation was. Maybe some people say 3.4 last year. So maybe you gained it 0.5%. That isn't necessarily even an honest number. So this is the problem with the market. And this is sort of what I predict too, because I predict that now, and I have been saying this, I think the market's going to go up. But the problem is, are you going up nominally or in reality? Because if the market goes up, but inflation goes up at the same time or faster, you're actually treading water or losing money. So it's very important to have the right investments, as we always say. And one other point about the markets before we talk about the next section, which is what we advise, as always. So the thing is, eventually, the U.S. government is going to have to bring rates down to zero, unless they absolutely can't. But what they're going to do is use yield curve control, because there's so much debt out there. They're not stopping it. It's an election year. They're not going to stop it this year. They just passed another budget. But also, the thing is, they cannot deal with Medicare liabilities that are unfunded, and footnote, neither can the rest of the world, without printing tons of money. Social Security and Medicare debt is basically off the books. They were supposed to put the money aside in the United States. They didn't. Other countries never even thought, well, where are we going to get the money later when our aging populations need healthcare? So this is happening in the very near future. It already might be happening. So you have to be very careful with your investments, bottom line, because we are in a time of change, and this is going to hit. So as always, we advise you, number one, stay with energy and pipelines. If we're entering a very significant stagflationary environment, which is where I think we're going, we're basically in it now. It's not high GDP, but inflation. If inflation is higher than GDP, you're not really gaining anything. You're actually just saying, oh, GDP is okay, or whatever. But again, GDP increases at 2.4, but inflation's at 3 or 4 or 5. You're losing ground. So this is going to affect the economy eventually and the markets. But again, there's great opportunities. Energy and pipelines are where you want to be, because that, I believe, is exactly where inflation is going to show up. Number two advice we always give is, whatever allocation you have to stocks, and that depends on your portfolio, you should have it in dividend stocks. Our favorite chart, which we show or talk about every time on Wall Street Hackers, says that for 50 years to 2022, dividend stocks outperformed the S&P 500 by double, and dividend growers and initiators outperformed by triple. That's a huge difference in performance. So you want to be in dividend stocks, as we focus on this show. And finally, you have to be obviously very selective in your investments. If we're heading for the stagflationary environment, and even more violent stagflationary environment, probably in terms of higher inflation and slower growth for companies down the road, which is probably where we're going, then you have to be very defensive, but you also need places where you're going to have success in an inflationary environment. So, quote of the week. This quote comes from Barron's Daily 315. It's just selected sentences. It's not exactly the quote, but they're all quoted words. Inflation isn't conquered, just consider the data. Thursday's producer price index, PPI, came in considerably higher than expected. Aside from the jump in energy and food prices, which can be volatile, the pickup in goods prices could be a worry. And yes, it's true, by the way, that food and energy prices are volatile, but energy prices can lead the way on inflation, clearly. They added also, quote, it wasn't supposed to be this way. Just a few months ago, investors were convinced the Fed could start cutting interest rates at its March 20th decision. Wall Street Hackers said, no way. Now the possibility of a June cut is looking more in doubt, and the total cuts expected by the end of the year is diminishing. Correct. Okay, 5 most interesting stories of the week. There's some really good stories. Interesting. So, IS number one, interesting story number one. Russian President Vladimir Putin won with about a record 88% in Russia's presidential election. Number one, that might be because he locked up his most prominent opponent. He put him in jail, and then recently he died in jail under at least potentially suspicious circumstances. 88% is especially good if you consider that there were huge protests which drew tens of thousands of Russians tens of thousands of police to manage gigantic numbers of protesters, but nobody knows. They won't publish the protester numbers, but it was tens of thousands of police. 88% seems a little high to me. There's also a South American dictatorship where the top presidential rival is being attacked in over 90 court cases, including 4 criminal cases. In that country, the media is corrupt, and their educational institutions are also preaching totally absurd agendas. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Oh, wait, that's not South America. It's the United States. I forgot. Not really funny in a way, but being sarcastic. It is incredible. Interesting story number 3. So a perfect example of this is the mainstream media has absolutely no integrity or competency. And yet people keep using it and like, oh, no problem. I'll just rely on them. So as examples, for years, they said Trump was a Russian spy. Then for years, Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation. Like, this might phase people and say, wait a minute, what am I listening to? No apologies, by the way, at all, pretty much, or none. Another perfect example this week. Donald Trump is talking about auto imports. And by the way, I like Trump on a lot of his policies, but I have some issues on some of those policies. But this is about the corrupt media, which drives me crazy. So he's talking about the auto imports allowed by the Biden administration. And he said, quote, it's going to be a bloodbath for the country if he weren't elected. And what he meant clearly in the context was he was talking about imports of autos, because that was where the sentence wound up. And maybe he later added, he was talking about EV mandates too, which would be the U.S. auto industry's death knell, basically, or really hurt them, do a lot of damage. So what does the media do, including the New York Times, which is so unreliable? They reported 2 themes. Number one, over and over, they said they were shocked by the word bloodbath. How could he use the word bloodbath? But then I saw a montage. The press uses the word bloodbath all the time. And so, but it's a problem when Trump used the word. But the key thing is they made it sound like Trump was warning of violence if he lost the election. You know, it's this theme of democracy is being threatened and there's going to be a revolution. Just trying to scare people. It's just garbage. Number 3 interesting story. This is from a realtor in Naples. And it reflects some of the other markets I've been watching a little bit in Florida. But also, it's interesting because I believe it reflects the direction of the national real estate market. He said, currently there is a 7-month supply of inventory, showing an increase of 85.9% over the last 12 months. That's a huge increase in inventory in 12 months. The median days in Naples on the market is now 58 days. He said more inventory means more choices, longer selling times means buyers are taking their time. And basically, soon prices are about to soften. And that's where I think this market is going. You have in one town in Florida where I was talking to a realtor, they said 50% are cash buyers, but the other are 50% mortgage buyers. There aren't a lot of people who are going to like 5.5% or 6.5% or 7% mortgages and paying, these exorbitant rates. The prices on houses went through the roof because the interest rates were down. Now that they're up, it's going to take a long time for there to be an adjustment. And I think real estate will be one of the first sectors to go, the private and also commercial has big issues. Interesting story number 4. SpaceX is developing a $1.8 billion spy satellite network. The new spy satellites the network features hundreds of satellites with Earth imaging capabilities that can operate in low orbits. This would provide the United States with the most persistent, pervasive, and rapid coverage of activities on Earth. If successful, it would strongly boost the U.S. government and military's ability to spot targets. But an interesting thing is a source said no one can hide. So this is going to be extremely effective. The contract also reflects a growing trust between SpaceX and the national security agencies. What isn't released is when this system of satellites will come online officially, and that's probably because it's classified, I'm sure. But there's going to be an eye in the sky for sure. And it's probably there or it's coming now. Finally, a very interesting energy story. A SUNY, state of New York, Albany professor believes he has discovered a way to make nuclear energy immensely safe. The physics professor says he discovered that lithium only becomes fissionable when hit by the ions and stabilizes when the beams stop. The concept would be to have fission that you could turn on and off. It avoids the intrinsic risk of uranium fission because that goes out of control, as we know, as happened in Chernobyl and in Pennsylvania. So this is really an amazing potential change to the future of energy in the United States and the world. It would negate also the dangers of uranium waste that are created by nuclear reactors. So this could be a real sea change, as I said, in terms of energy. But we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, now it has to become a reality, and that's going to take years. So for the meantime, I'll watch it, stay in my energy investments, because I think that's number one sector, and it has done as well as tech, basically as well in the last few years. And I think it's the wave of the future, because I think tech is high now, and there's more issues there. So we're going to do a quick advertisement, and we'll be back with our pick of the week, our dividend pick of the week, and our discussion of the week. See you soon.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Couliet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client. We review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner, and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office, to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252.
And we're back. So before I get into the dividend pick of the week, just a few mentions. One, last week I mentioned Tesla and shorting it, and I still think it's probably a good idea, but it's not my style. I'm not I like sure things as investments. Not that I've always gotten sure things, but most of the time I get it right. But so I think Tesla's probably going to have severe problems, but in tech, you never know. There's push-pull against the shorts. And so I pulled out, just for disclosure. I'll probably regret it. I've pulled out earlier on my other shorts, and I regretted all three of those. But I did do okay on that, and but I'm out. So dividend pick of the week. First disclaimers, the show is for entertainment only. These are only our opinions. There's no guarantees on any of our investments, and there's no guarantees on any investments in the world unless you get a CD, and then there's not a guaranteed against inflation. And consult your financial advisor. So we're going to MPLX, which I've recommended a number of times on the show. Next week, I promise a new one. I've got some interesting ones, both in the energy sector and also a new dividend fund. Only the second one I've ever gone with, and I really like it. But this week, we're going with long-term favorite, MPLX. I liked it at 14 in 2020. I liked it at 28 in 21. I liked it at 33 in 23. And I still like it today at 40, 50 roughly today. And the numbers look about as good as they looked in 2020 at 14 and 21 and 28. They're really good. The dividend yield is around 8.5%. It has tax advantaged MLP benefits. A lot of times you don't pay taxes on these for years because you get depreciation, depletion, and also return of capital. And a footnote is if you own it in a pension or an IRA, you have to watch out for something called UBTI. You'll have to look it up. There's a maximum you can own there without some penalties. The price to cash flow is around 7, which equals a 14% cash flow yield. Now, when they say it's getting 14% cash flow yield and 7 price over cash flow, that doesn't count all the projects that are in inception. So those projects come to fruition. And historically, this sector has done tremendously in most years, except for maybe around 2017 to 2020 when energy prices were crashing. And then they had to start funding for themselves. But on the other side, most years they got about a 17% return, the sector, and MPLX looks to me to be the best. So it's my largest allocation still. I also like the fact that it's an oil-oriented MLP. I believe that oil is really the stronger place to be. I think natural gas is going to be fine, and it has some of that too. But a lot of the MLPs they're all mixed, basically oil and gas, because of the integration of the two. But basically, oil, I think, is the best place to be in terms of keeping up with inflation and the supply-demand picture. So MPLX, I think, is really solid and very large allocation for us, and we will bring quite a few new ones starting next week. So panel discussion of the week. What would you tell the political parties if you were president? And Nick and I will be pretending we were president and saying what we would do. So background. First of all, once in a rare while, and I do mean a rare while, people say to me, and they're serious, that I should be president. Now, it happened to me last week, so that's what made me trigger this idea. Now, I don't want to be president anyway. It wouldn't be a job I would take, but my dream job is to be a presidential advisor. So if there's anybody watching out there that can help me with my life dream, and I think that dream is because I could do it really well, but if you can help me, please contact us and let me know. I know you can do it if you have the power to get me into that position. I'd be very thankful, and I think I'd make a difference. So in any case, getting back to the topic, the two major political parties obviously have moved to extremes on many issues, if not most issues. On some issues, such as crime and immigration, the Democrats, in my opinion, have totally gone off the deep end. On some issues like abortion and the environment, many Republicans take the position that there's only one valid position. They don't seem to realize that there might be intelligent arguments to be heard on the other side. So almost no one is listening to the other side. This is a real problem for the country because it doesn't allow for strategic planning. We're fighting over small issues in terms of time, the current budget, things like that. And every little is a battle. And there's really important issues to be dealt with, again, in this time of rapid change. So, Nick, what would you tell the political parties if you were president?
The number one issue is the economy. And the number one things the president should look at is to do one thing: balance the budget. It's kind of weird to see that the last time the budget was balanced was under a Democratic administration, which was Bill Clinton. And of course, they had a Republican Congress at the time. This is not the hardest thing in the world to do, by the way, Peter. I did look at the balancing the budget. It would require cuts, about 28 to 30%, or you could do it 9% over 3 or 4 years, and you could actually balance the budget. So then why would you do that? Because you would be sending a message to the world that we are going to get our fiscal house in order. Right now, that is not the case. For those who've read it, which no one does, the 2025 budget has come out. And here's the proposal. We're going to spend 1.7 trillion more than we take in. So we're going to increase the national debt 1.7 trillion. the national debt will rise to $50 trillion in the next 50 trillion, the next 15 years. And the debt to GDP ratio will be 116%, the highest ever. In other words, I hate to say it, bad news, and bad news. Now, the good news is this, and I've gone through the budget and I'm going to go through it again. It's only 188 pages. It should be required reading of all high school students before they graduate.
They should they should teach economics. Yeah, you're right. And then
right. Well, you know, when you're in high school, you know, people say, I don't want to do this. I want to take music classes. I don't give a rat's about music. You force them to read the national budget.
Learn budgeting through the federal budget.
Yeah, it's 188 pages. I mean,
no, they should. You're right. That'd be a great study for people to realize.
It's a great study, and then you see, because they do disclose a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse that takes place. One thing we're doing is disclosing something that we have a group at CERAWeek this week, and what they're disclosing, and they found out, is the United States is spending potentially, and we're looking at the study right now, $780 billion, and it's going to a Chinese corporation.
Oh,
and
that's incredible. So, a few points. Wait, let me jump in now. So, a few points about what you said. First of all, the United States, even during that Republican Senate, Congress and Clinton, when they say it's a balanced budget, or whether you talk about 50 trillion. The problem is you're not talking about unfunded liabilities.
No, I'm not. I'm just talking about the budget.
This is the game that Washington's dealing with right now.
Right.
And the problem is Medicare and Social Security are about to go broke in the next few years. Right. And they've been not putting any money away. Other countries are in similar situations. So the problem is the real numbers estimated for those are 125 trillion already in deficit. So what does this mean? First of all, economically for the show, it means very likely inflation and stagflation, because they're going to be printing money, but also they're going to tax as much as they can. And the whole situation, it's not a pretty situation. And they're going to ultimately have to bring rates down to zero. Again, as I said, because they're not going to be able to afford to pay interest on 175 trillion or whatever that number is. It's unfathomable. So there's a few things I would say. First of all, we're in a period of rapid change and strategic thinking is needed. Division in Washington is locking this country up when we need strategic planning for looking beyond this year. Number two, for Democrats, I'd say three things. The means don't justify the ends. Number one, if you're thinking of turning the U.S. into a banana republic by using political tricks, you probably want to think about the long-term results. Number two, you need to allow the middle of your party to retake power. The progressives are both misguided on many issues, if not most issues for sure, and they're not that popular. Number three, you need to diversify your information sources. The mainstream media in general in this country is so corrupt. They're just like objectively corrupt and unethical. And that's partly because they just want to report what gets them ratings and what the audience wants to hear, because if they tell them things they don't want to hear, people won't watch. But if it's like, oh, I'm pissed off, I'm getting the news I want to hear, it's really the other side's wrong. So if you're a Democrat, and I've heard some of them say so many things that are like way off base because they don't look at, even the politicians, because they don't look at it. Spend some time watching Fox News during the day, not at night, Fox Business, or read the New York Post, or all three, and just start comparing your information sources and seeing, what the truth is. It's not either side, but there's a lot of information that's just corrupt. For Republicans, I'd say there are a number of issues where the conclusions aren't as clear as you think, depending on the politician. Use Google search engines. If you're willing to do this, try this to understand the other side. For two good examples is search, quote, global warming carbon experiments. There is some real issues there. If you look at the experiments, that maybe there is a problem with the world and global warming. You can also look at other side, if you're on the other side, but it's not that clear, that's for sure. And we've discussed that on another show. And also on the abortion issue, quote, look at, quote, different arguments on abortion. Listen, this is the party supposed to be the party of limited government, and yet it's dividing your party, and it's unpopular with many people, and there are actually valid opinions on either side. Finally, if the if you guys don't stop fighting, we're in big trouble, because we are heading for an economic tsunami that is going to be incredibly harmful for this country. You can't wait till the tsunami is arm's length away, standing on the beach, to say, wait a minute, we need to do this. This is 50 years of kicking the can. So we've got to go, unfortunately. We're always out of time. Thanks for watching. As Kim says, get healthy, get wealthy, and we will see you next week. See you soon, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.